All right, it looks like we're live, so hello and welcome to the 2021 UAF Arctic Innovation Competition presented by Usabelli Coal Mine. My name is Ashley Plies and I'm a UAF School of Management student studying accounting, as well as an AIC team member. I'm so excited to be your MC tonight and for our also first ever virtual AIC. We appreciate all of the creative ideas that are submitted to AIC, but after a round of preliminary screening, only 10 have made it to the main division semifinals for ages 18 and over. You will hear 5 of those ideas tonight. The main division semifinalists are competing for cash prizes from $100 to $10,000. I want to let our competitors and anyone watching on the live stream know that we are recording each of the semifinal sessions this week, and you'll find them on the AIC webpage. Our streamlining platform does not allow us to show the slides, but importantly, if you are watching online, you'll see and hear the competitors. First, we would like to introduce our expert panel of judges joining us tonight. Please make sure you have your cameras on, judges. And we will start with Jon Bittner from the Alaska Small Business Development Center.
Hello, everybody.
And Jim Cully representing Mount McKinley Bank.
Hello, everyone.
Next is Reggie Dallaire from PDC Engineers and a 2014 AIC Arctic Kicker winner.
Hello, competitors. Good luck.
And then Kathryn Dodge is a special projects manager for her own consulting team.
Hi, everyone. Great ideas. I look forward to learning more.
And then Brian Holst, hailing from the Juneau Economic Development Council.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
Kathleen Hook is representing Doyon Utilities. Oh, you're muted, Kathleen.
I had my video on though. I had halfway.
You were good.
Good evening, everyone, and good luck to the competitors.
And lastly, Jack Wilbur, our judges chair, is from Design Alaska.
Yes, thank you, and looking forward to the presentations.
Thank you so much, judges, and let's get started with presentations. Each competitor has 5 minutes to present their ideas, followed by 7 minutes of questions from our judges panel. Competitors, please remember to say next slide when you are ready for us to advance to the next slide, and keep an eye on your timer to see how much time is left. Up first, we have Royce Hornberger presenting the portable gantry crane. All right. Royce, can you see your slides when they're pulled up?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. And give us a thumbs up when you're ready for us to start the timer.
Hello, my name is Royce Hornberger. I am presenting my idea on the confined space gantry crane. Next slide, please. The idea originated, I work as a generator and diesel engine mechanic, and going to people's homes working on generators are usually tucked away in tight confined areas and sheds, and does not relate to good body positioning when removing heavy components. So I came up with this idea and built a prototype to do that. And it's about a 20-minute setup over the equipment. Allows one person to pull off some very heavy components and put them back on with no damage to the component, and makes things much simpler. Next slide, please. So my design, it's a simple overhead frame with a trolley track that you can lift and position components or machinery, electric motors, what have you, where there's no existing means available. We tried doing it with the traditional engine cherry picker for automotive use, and unless you can get the legs underneath something, it's pretty much useless. So this design was used using unistrut components completely. It has adjustable height, length, and width, so it can be customized for whatever location you're in. And you can take down and transport it on small aircraft or watercraft, what have you. Next slide, please. So here's a picture of my prototype. You can see that there are 2 trolleys on the track, which allows for a better distribution of weight. You can attach spreader bars, chain hoists, all sorts of lifting equipment to those, move the removed equipment out of the way, and keep your work area clear, make things simpler. Next slide, please. Now, the pictures are very small here, but you can see the basic setup over the unit. You can attach onto the first housing and remove that, put it on a cart, slide it out of the way. Next slide, please. Then you can go back in and grab the next component there again, slide it down the track, get it on a cart, get it out of the way, and do the work that you need to do either on the engine or the generator or whatever you're attaching to. Next slide, please. Now, this picture isn't very clear, but it's a 9-liter diesel engine, and it weighs approximately 1,500 pounds in its current configuration. And we had a very tight space to get it off of the frame that it was mounted to and onto a cart beneath it to remove it from the generator house. The frame did perfectly. It didn't have any issues with buckling or flexing. It was very stiff. And it saved a lot of headache. They tried using an overhead lifting frame, and it didn't have the strength to lift it. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, my design provides a safe way for one person to move heavy components and pretty much eliminates the potential for injury due to awkward body positioning or ballistic movements trying to move the equipment. It can easily be assembled or disassembled over the existing equipment. The ease of portability to remote locations using small craft. Breaks down into the longest piece is 5 feet in length on the prototype. The current prototype design can support up to 2,000 pounds using both trolleys. It's a simple, economical device that has the potential to reduce labor costs, injury, while providing the flexibility for multiple applications. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Royce. Are you ready for some questions from our judges?
Yes.
All right, judges will get to ask a question in a particular order. We will stop once we hit the 7-minute mark, and the next round of questions will start with the next judge on the list. And Tammy will help moderate, and I believe we're starting with Jack.
And timer.
Thank you. So this looks like really interesting and really useful. How would you patent it, though, so it isn't just copied?
Well, I still have to do more searching on it, but I have done some patent searches and I haven't found anything at all like this. I'm not too familiar with the patent process, though, so I don't know how to answer that other than doing a search and applying for a patent.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathleen is next, followed by Jim Culley.
Thank you. So Royce, this does look interesting. How heavy is your prototype in itself to, like, let's say you were to carry it into your garage or something? How much weight are we talking?
Altogether, it's probably about 200 pounds, but it can be broken down into components and carried piece by piece.
Got it. So someone like my size could put this together?
Yes.
Got it. Interesting.
Because the front and rear legs go together as a unit, and then you can take the trolley and attach it to the legs. So it's not all in one, it's broken down.
Is this, I see your purposes for engines. Is this something that could also be used to move boulders or rocks out when you're doing, let's say, landscaping? Is that even?
If you had a means to attach to them, yeah, up to 2,000 pounds, obviously.
Got
but
it.
yes, it could. But the range of motion on the prototype is 5 feet. So you'd have to move
So
it and
you'd
then
have-
repick it and move it.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. That's it.
Hello, Royce. Hey, I had a
Hello.
couple of questions. One is, I noticed you mentioned the poundage on 2000. Is there a way to rate this maybe for larger projects or to scale it up or down?
You can strengthen the frame, but the limit for this is the trolleys. They're only rated for 1,200 pounds apiece, maximum weight. So
Okay.
with
And-
this design, you're
and then
constrained with that.
Okay. And then my second question is what keeps this, if you move that weight from one side to the other, to keeps it from, I guess, flipping over or getting too heavy on one side and losing the stability?
With the legs on the very ends, all the weight pulls down on top of the legs. So it's very stable, and there's a cross brace between the front and rear leg on each side.
Okay. That was all I had.
All right, we have 4 minutes left. If you could please raise your hand. It's open to all judges at this point. Reggie?
Royce, I like your idea. I think it's a great idea. I like that it's scalable. I see a lot of opportunity in it. I'm glad that you mentioned that it was had cross bracing because I couldn't see that in the pictures. I'm also thinking like you could probably pretty easily put casters on this, couldn't you?
Yes, I haven't done it yet. I do have some 900-pound casters, but I haven't attached them to the legs to try it out yet.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea and scalable. Was there anything that you had to build or manufacture yourself, or is this all off-the-shelf parts, standard unistrut type stuff?
The strut material, I just had to cut to the lengths that I wanted, and then they have all the brackets. You just bolt them in.
Mhm.
We did have to weld the 45-degree corner brackets at the top corners of the legs to the cross bracing. We had to weld those on just to give it more stiffness, but everything else is either strut nuts or bolts.
Don't mean to hijack, but one more question. You said your trolleys are good for, or the trolley is good for 2,000 pounds.
I'm
Any
sorry, did
idea-
I say 2,000? It's 1,200 pounds per
Oh,
trolley.
1,200, okay. Any idea what the unistrut at that length is good for? Or do you have any kind of calculation or engineering?
The track is rated for 2,100 pounds, either uniform or with a 2-point pick in the outer quarters,
Okay.
according to Unistrut's website.
Excellent. Thank you, Royce.
You're welcome.
All right, we have 2 minutes left. I believe Jack Wilbur had his hand up.
I took it down because Reggie asked my question.
Perfect. All right, there's still some time. Would any other of the judges or somebody who's already gone like to do a follow-up question? Digital hand, or just kind of give me a wave with your real hand? Brian Holst.
Yeah, thanks. Really clever idea. What sort of technical assistance did you get? Did you work with any experts? Do you have any, do we know, besides you building this from another source, why that this is going to be technically feasible and safe to use?
Other than my experience using strut in construction, I don't have any other expertise. Other than the trial and error with using it, we've used it, like I said, from small generators up to 1,500-pound engine, and that was evidence that it worked perfectly in those situations. But no, I don't have any engineering other than Unistrut's posted data.
All right, we have time for one more question. Should anybody have one? Kathleen, and that will wrap us up.
Royce, so why did you come up with this idea? What was going on in your life that you thought this would be a great idea?
the potential for blowing out my back. So no, I had to come up with an idea to make those situations safe. Because moving that equipment around is not fun unless you have something to carry the weight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Royce. We are going to pull our second presenter in, and it'll be just a few moments for her to show up. All right, so our second presenter for this evening is Stephanie Hinz, explaining the idea Arctic Quest, a virtual reality experience. Stephanie, can you see your slides?
Yes, I can.
All right, remember to keep an eye on your 5-minute countdown clock and give us a thumbs up when you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. All right, so my name is Stephanie Hinz, as introduced, and my idea is a virtual reality game. Now, virtual reality games have been on the market now for about 5 years, and I got introduced to this from my son during Christmas time. So my idea actually came about from my attempts at learning to navigate virtual reality. Next slide, please. The games that were available on the device that he had were a little bit involved for me. I'm not really into zombies or military shooting games, things like that. And what I really wanted to find was something that was more familiar, that would kind of give me an opportunity to engage in activities that I like to do, but a lot of times I'm not able to. And probably like a few other people, I've put on a few pounds during the pandemic shutdown, working remotely from home and things like that, and was looking at a way to get a little bit more active. And as I was doing some research, I realized that this would be a great opportunity for our youth, especially those in Alaska and rural places, to get a little bit more physical activity. There are so many different activities that could be done through virtual reality, both through computer-generated graphics and now through 360 panoramic videos. Those can create very immersive experiences. Next video, please. Next slide. In doing some of my research, the obesity crisis for Alaska Native youth especially is getting worse. And we've seen a lot with that during the pandemic, that kids are not engaging in physical activity. Statistics show that they're not getting the number of minutes per day that is recommended for physical activity. But it's not just youth, it's I think the general population. Initially, my idea was to target this specifically to schools, to programs that deal with youth, and to try to get them active and engaged in a way that actually meets them where they are, which for a lot of kids is games. Now, I'm not a gamer. I just kind of did this because my son brought a unit into our home and it was a lot of fun, and it looked like it would be a great way to lose some pounds and get a little bit in shape. And so I started investigating whether or not this would actually have some options for students. Next slide, please. So Arctic Quest could introduce them to a number of things, different Arctic winter activities, cultural things. It could introduce them to other cultures other than their own. It could do things like native dance. There's just a wide range of things. A lot of it would just kind of depend on how much video we're able to get or what the computer graphics generated would be. Next slide, please. Benefits, obviously, we'd be able to get more access to cultural information. They get more physical movement. This could introduce a wider global audience to Arctic culture, especially Alaska culture. Next slide, please. The equipment already exists. It's on the market and it's affordable. And there are a number of free games available that people could try. Next slide, please. And the market potential for this particular game that would focus on Arctic culture and Arctic activities is actually it could be profitable from launch. There does seem to be interest in this through different organizations within the state from conversations that I've had with various groups. Next slide, please. But in order to get this product made, there are some things that need to happen. I'm not a developer, although I have a background in marketing and web design. So that would be something that would need to be addressed. Next slide, please. So developing a business plan, working out the feasibility, developing partnerships, all those things would need to take place. Next slide, please. And as you can see, there are some costs associated with it, but these I believe are all manageable and actually could allow the product to be profitable from its launch. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie. Let's see what questions our judges have for you about your Arctic Quest virtual reality experience. And we are starting with Jon, and then going to Reggie, and then Kathryn, and then it opens to the rest of the judges.
Hi, thanks, Stephanie. That was fun. I love video games, so I am you're speaking my language. The questions I had sort of centered more around the game development. Now, you said that you're not a programmer yourself. We went through that last slide so fast, I couldn't really see the funding that you had allocated, but what are you expecting this is going to cost to develop a virtual reality game like this?
So I've done a bunch of research, talked to a few people. It looks like on a high end, it could cost about $18,000 to develop the product. A lot of that is spent on the actual VR developers themselves. Now, I've also done some research into the SDKs, the kits that are used to actually write the programming. What I didn't mention, I should have, is the platform this would use is the Oculus Quest 2. It's already on the market. They've outperformed their sales projections in an astronomical way. They sold close to 5 million units. It is owned by Facebook, so they have access to a lot of resources. There's over 500 free games available for current users. So they have a very robust system for helping developers create content. So actually, I kind of decided that this might be something I might try to teach myself to create if I'm able to.
All right, thank you very much.
My turn, I guess. I'm going to have to defer maybe to some of the other judges. I am not a gamer, and I've never used the 3D Oculus thing. I am trying to imagine in my mind how it's different than watching a YouTube video. I don't know. I'm really lost here. So no questions from me. I'm sorry.
Well, I can address that if you're okay with that. So this is the older version. This is the Oculus Rift, and this is what my son got that got me really interested into it. It's very immersive. You almost forget where you are in place and time, so you can actually manipulate stuff. And they actually have programs for career development, learning how to weld virtually using this kind of equipment. So there's a lot of applications for it. It just doesn't happen to be a game right now that introduces the world to the Arctic. There is one game that introduces the world to the Antarctic, but that's the only one I was able to find, and it's computer generated, so you don't get the glorious immersion from video.
All right, thank you.
All right, Kathryn Dodge, you're up next, and then we'll open it up to the panel.
Super. Well, I'm not, like Reggie, I'm not a gamer either, although I've seen the esports and Oculus staging or program at UAF. And so I was intrigued by you mentioning partnering with them, and I was curious to learn more about that. Have you pursued that? Are you still considering that?
I am still considering that, and partly because one of my other sons is a video gamer. Like, he wants to go pro. He actually wants to, his plan is to enroll in the esports program at UAF. So I had him and some of his friends kind of review my idea and what they thought about it and whether it was feasible, whether there'd be an audience for it, and all those kinds of things. And so he kind of helped guide some of that. He's 16, so I feel like he's the market that I was looking for. But I'm very interested in whether or not there'd be the possibility to partner with the communications department, the art department at UAF, making this maybe the first experience some students might have in actually doing game development themselves.
Right.
I think it would be great to have that partnership.
I think that could be really rich. I did do some quick Googling and find that there was a skiing program. So
yeah, there's a fishing one,
Right.
but none of them are actually like Arctic. I don't think I couldn't find a snowmobiling one. That's the one I really wanted.
Interesting. So I think maybe my other questions, as I look at them, you've addressed. So I'll pass it on. Thank you.
All right, we have 2 minutes and some change left. Is there another judge who would like to take this on and ask a question? Digital hand or real hand? Jon Bittner, you're up first, followed by Jack Wilbur.
No, let Jack go first. I already had one, but if there's any time, I have one more.
Okay, Jack, followed by Jon.
Yeah, so I can just take cross-country skiing. That was one of the things that you mentioned as a possibility. And I can imagine being immersed in a cross-country skiing scene, and kind of like you're cross-country skiing and the trees are going by and you're going down the trail. What I don't quite get is, how do you get exercise? What is your body doing while this is going on? I mean, so unless I don't know, tell me how you get exercise doing that.
That's a great question. So a lot of it is exercise is raising your heart rate, trying to maintain a higher heart rate. And so there is a lot of upper body movement. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I thought that there'd be some great native activities, games, and things that could be incorporated. Things like different types of you pick dance is a lot of stationary standing, but there's a lot of arm movements involved. In fact, there's a guy named Job Stouffer who lost 82 pounds in the course of a year simply playing sound boxing on VR on the Oculus. So I think that there's potential for it to really help people's physical fitness.
Thank you.
All right, Jon, go ahead and squeeze your question in and wrap us up.
Thanks. So I want to bring it back because I do think that there is a real economic value to this. If anybody's familiar with the Never Alone video game, that was created in collaboration with a video game company and a local native corporation, and that did phenomenally well. And it was largely based around sort of Alaska Native culture and their traditions. I think you're onto something here, and I think partnering with them is sort of a natural fit because they have the video game company already in house. The biggest concern I have for you is the not having experience in video games. The video game industry, a lot of people don't know this, it's actually bigger than the movie industry. There's a dollar for dollar. Video games cost more and generate more revenue than Hollywood does. So it's a very competitive, very technical thing. And I would highly recommend getting involved with somebody who has that technical experience, because it's not as easy as learning code. There's a lot of pieces.
Yes.
Marketing background is definitely going to come into.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, Ashley, back to you.
All right, thank you, Stephanie and judges. Before our next presenter, we are going to have a sponsor spotlight. There are special $2,000 kicker prizes up for grabs for any of the top 10 main division ideas, regardless of where they place in the finals. That means these kickers could go to an honorable mention or to the $10,000 grand prize winner, or anywhere in between. The Arctic Kicker is a $2,000 prize sponsored by PDC Engineering. Although AIC ideas do not have to be Arctic in nature, they often are because of our geographic climate. This special prize recognizes a new innovation that is sustainable, efficient, and makes living in the Arctic easier. The Alaska College Student Kicker is a $2,000 prize sponsored by Mount McKinley Bank, one of our new sponsors to AIC. This special prize is given to the best idea submitted from any Alaska college student currently enrolled at any university in Alaska. Thank you, PDC engineers and Mount McKinley Bank, for your support of innovation and entrepreneurial spirit. Our next presenter is going to be Aimee Hassell, explaining her idea, Tiny Houses in the North. And it'll be just a moment for her to pop in. All right, there she is. All right, Aimee, can you see your slides?
No.
No. All right. So can you toggle your view up at the top right-hand corner to speaker
There we go.
view?
Yep.
All right. Keep an eye on your timer and give us a thumbs up when you're ready to start.
Hi, my name is Aimee Hassell. I am the founder and CEO of Tiny Haven. I'm also a senior psychology student at the University of Alaska Anchorage, and I'd like to talk to you about tiny houses in the north, a solution to our housing crisis. Next slide, please. Anchorage does have a critical housing market shortage, and bearing the brunt of this shortage are our students. For this survey, we used UAA and APU as the majority stakeholders here in Anchorage, and we found that 74% of our students live in off-campus housing. If you take a look at the apartment building on the right, you think, oh, that's nice, it's tidy. I could live there, my student could live there. And then you take a look at the ad. That is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. You now have 2 people living with you potentially that you don't know. Who checked their backgrounds? It's also $3,750 a month for a 12-month lease. That may or may not include utilities. That is $1,250 per student per month for a full year. I guess they're not going on summer vacation. Next slide, please. The reality is that our students go where the rents are cheap, and you do get what you pay for. There are some scary rental units in this town. Our solution is to provide a series of mobile and non-mobile tiny house units to help solve this housing gap. Next slide, please. The tiny house movement is now. Over half of Americans say they would consider going tiny. Even better, millennials are at 63%. If you take a look at the picture on the right, that is an actual tiny house village in operation right now in Austin, Texas. They are doing fantastic business during COVID due to the isolationism of the units. And our customers think we need one here in Anchorage now. Next slide, please. We took a look at our market potential at the underserved students who couldn't get a room in the dorms. And although UAA is an open community, we do serve a lot of non-traditional students. That is still a lot of people looking for housing in our market. So we took a look at the tourists. The tourists like to make sure that their dollars go back to the local economy. They like to make sure their dollar counts. We'd like to help them find a place for that dollar to count by subsidizing those rents for students so that they can concentrate on other things. Alaska is ranked high on post-COVID tourism destination lists. People have been saving their money for a year and they want to come here to play. Post-pandemic travel accommodation requests are also going to look very different. In the past, you may have asked for a hot tub in your room or maybe gym equipment at the local hotel. Now you're more wondering who's getting on that elevator with you, who touched that last, and hey, is this a heat exchange system? Next slide, please. Tiny houses do still have student advantages as well. Our units aim to be sustainable and low cost using state-of-the-art building materials, upcycling, and partnering with local trade school programs to educate and inspire as we build. Those students do need to be close to campus. It's their job to participate in their cohort and get the best of their education. And that 9-month academic lease is critical so that they can go out and get those practicums or summer internships or just live at large in Alaska to prepare them for their post-academic world. Next slide, please. Anchorage is starting the tiny house revolution in a different way. These are the first ads that I've seen. Those are about 600 to 800 square feet per unit. They are listed as condominiums, so they do have an HOA attached. But if you notice, they get 3 pretty nice looking units on a very small lot. It's a great start, but I think we can do better. Next slide, please. By using our resources wisely, upcycling and partnering with local businesses such as Mat-Su Valley Rebuild, who is a local nonprofit that helps lost and forlorn building materials find new homes, we can absolutely reduce the cost of that dreaded Alaskan shipping disease. If you take a look at the picture on the left, that's actually Juneau in the early 1900s. It's there to remind us that Alaskans are scrappy. We do often use what's locally available, either by necessity, creativity, or innovation. We'd love to continue that tradition. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of what's out there on the market, these are units that are already existing. They use local resources and each one is a piece of art. Next slide, please. Just to give you an idea of what's out there, the ad in the middle is actually a real ad, and it says very specifically they do not want an RV park or a mobile home park. The tiny house movement is a movement. It's about getting outdoors. It's about spending quality time, having equal outdoor space that's private as well as indoor space, downsizing and getting out there and living the best life we can here in Alaska. And we are looking forward to opening for that fall cohort. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Aimee. We're now going to turn to the judges panel for their questions. We are going to begin with Brian, move to Jack, Kathleen, and then it's open to the rest.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It is, housing is a huge issue in our state. Tell me a little bit more about how this fits Arctic. Are these more efficient, less efficient energy-wise? Help me understand, because I've seen these in other parts of the US. They're not up here very much here in Alaska. Is there a reason for that? And how do you address that?
Well, part of it is a stigma, you know, Anchorage specifically doesn't like trailer parks, and I can kind of understand why. It's my personal nightmare sometimes. These units are about a third of the size of a regular house, so they should be a third of the price. Depending on how you go about it, I have an advisor that's testing Arctic panels right now, R44 factor. I mean, you can almost heat a 400 square foot unit with a little plug-in space heater. So yes, it is. It's about reducing the cost to heat it. I'll get back to you on how I feel about freshmen and wood stoves, but yeah, it's about installing solar to offset those costs, using better building materials, and then, you know, the interiors we can really upcycle. There's a whole lot of really great stuff that Alaskans have stuffed in barns everywhere. I want to get my fingers on it and play with it.
All right, Jack Wilbur, followed by Kathleen Hook, please.
Have you actually built a tiny home into, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we're actually going to break ground this spring. It has not stopped snowing here in Anchorage, but what we're going to do for the first units is to bring in existing units that are already out there. Because of the recession, there are some really incredible stuff that is hitting the market for sale right now. And a lot of that are the cabins. Structurally, it's a concern. You know, we have to modify and meet code. But I've done other projects that were fairly small. I mean, not this small. I tore down a 100-year-old house to the 2x4 beams. And by the way, 100-year-old beams are just gorgeous. And rebuilt the whole thing. So this is not a new process. It's just a little bit more creative design.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aimee. I couldn't quite see your slide on the ad. You said, look at the ad in the middle. What was that ad for? Can you tell me a little bit about what that slide was, what you were trying to say with that slide?
Yep, I've been watching the market here for about 6 or 7 years. And, you know, people are popping up all over the place, and not just like traditional RVs, you know, because some of those are about $400,000 or $500,000. These are people that have either tiny homes, renovated buses, things like that. They don't want a trailer park. They're looking for a place to park their units, and they're willing to pay the rent, but they don't want to be squished in like sardines. And I don't blame them. Part of my expansion plan is that I really would love to see pads all over Anchorage, kind of like RV parks, but tiny houses tend to be a little bit wider. And like I said, you really need that outdoor private space. Those are, you know, RV parks just don't provide that. So it'd be awesome if a student could come in for a 4-year degree and, you know, they have to pay housing for that full 4 years, have that house paid for and drive away, find their own land, or find another pad somewhere in Alaska in a similar village and just move.
So the idea is that the part of it is to create these spaces that have numerous pads that people can bring their small house and hook up to utilities, hook up to a water and wastewater and power.
Mm-hmm. That is an ongoing plan. My first village model is for students to use the tourist dollars to subsidize and keep those rents low. But there are over 20 plots of land at the place I'm looking. I've already bought my own lots, but you know, I'm going to keep going. And that was my eventual goal, is to have an actual community. And I do mean a community. This is about, you know, getting together and activities and knowing your neighbors. And especially with students, that dorm experience, if you've ever lived in a traditional dorm, follows you for the rest of your life. I mean, my college roommates from my first traditional dorm are still my friends, and they still advise me today. And that's what I'm trying to recreate, whether it's students or mobile communities, circle jerking. When I was a kid, we used to travel the United States in an RV. Those are some of the best experiences I remember, and I want to pass that on to other people.
Thank you, Aimee.
Mm-hmm.
All righty, we have 2 minutes and some change, digital hand and real hands. I see Kathryn Dodge will be going first, please.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. I think I'm starting to understand a little better, but you had mentioned mobility, like one built unit that I think was due to stay and one that was mobile. And I didn't understand initially. And now I'm assuming that that was about people taking them when they're done. Is that what you were talking about? Or can you explain what the one mobile, one not mobile?
That's part of Anchorage Muni Code. Because of the way that the land is written, you have to make some sort of an accommodation to get these units into code. The condo units that I showed you are actually on multi-dwelling land. I'm looking at R5 land, which is the least restrictive, but there can only be one primary unit. However, to build a trailer park or an RV park, it's that same sort of setup. So in order to have a quick exit plan in the event of a catastrophic event, I can pull out the mobile units. The lot is still left with one actual house on it, and I can sell it. As you saw, they're selling for $250,000, $300,000, no problem. But it's about an accommodation for both people who own mobile units, allowing people to rent to own, take it with them when they go. Not only that, but mobile units are so much easier to pull out in the event of damage. Say we have another earthquake event, you're looking at $30,000 to replace a unit instead of $300,000 to replace a home.
And is $30,000 then what you're expecting to be the cost of each unit?
Well, that's a little variable. Every budget that you build has to wiggle. You're never going to meet your budget deadline exactly. Right now, housing prices are up, and so are building materials. That's why we're going after that sustainable building material, the upcycling and whatnot. The units that I'm looking at, yes, I have hard research. I have units that I've already bookmarked, and I'm just ready to buy them. I just need to finish my financing.
And what was the cost of those?
They range anywhere from, you can go upper unit for a brand new one shipped in from out of state for about $75,000. There are also builders here in Anchorage and in the Valley that build units. But I'm looking at, for the first couple, like I said, bringing in already existing units, modifying them, attaching them to partial foundations. The actual business plan also calls for a 5-berth train car, which is amazingly, again, because of the recession, there's a lot of stuff out there on bankruptcy. The train is $45,000. Shipping is ridiculous. We're not talking about shipping, but those sorts of things are a little bit more prevalent right now than trying to build new.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And let's go ahead and move to our next competitor.
Thank you, Aimee. All right, we are now going to bring Robert Werner in here, and we'll give him a moment to pop up. All right, in the 2019 AIC, Robert Werner took home an honorable mention in the main division for his idea, the Alaska Bear Troller. And it also seems that Robert's been pretty busy this year because he has 2 ideas that made it to the semifinals. Tonight we hear his idea, Fuel Alert. All right, Robert, can you see your slides?
Yeah, I can.
All right, just give us a thumbs up when you're ready.
There we go. Yeah, my name is Robert Werner. Thanks a lot for allowing me to present Fuel Alert. It's an intelligent gas cap for filling marine fuel tanks. Next slide, please. After the Exxon Valdez oil spill, they instituted new federal regulations that any fuel spill that causes an oil sheen has to be reported to the Coast Guard. By creating a sheen, you're also opening up yourself to prosecution in any boat owner if they have spilled a little fuel. And it's just a fairly common experience. Next slide, please. Next slide. Boat fuel systems are basically different from cars. Filling a car gas tank rarely results in a fuel spill. The tank only has one opening, and when the fuel nozzle clicks off, you're good. A boat fuel tank has a vent tube to prevent the buildup of vapors that leads directly to the ocean. If you fill it to the max like your car, you will be spilling fuel into the ocean. No matter how careful you are, it's quite easy to do. Next slide, please. Fuel alert is an intelligent gas cap that determines when your tank is full. It's battery operated, has sealed waterproofed electronics, and is adjustable to just about any tank on most boats. It's compatible with diesel or gas or any liquid. It gives an audible alert to adjustable fuel stop levels. Next slide, please. This is the prior art. All have basically been discontinued, but the one on the left attaches to your vent pipe. And as long as there's air moving through it, it gives a singing noise, but it never really worked. I installed one in my boat. The no spill attaches to the vent exit on the side of the boat and kind of holds any spills that go over, but that's actually been discontinued too. A big review of these things by Boat US indicated that none really work, and most people are cautioned never to fill their boat anywhere near fill and always have a spill kit on board. Next slide, please. This is how it works. There's a tiny pressure sensor that is able to measure small differences in air pressure. It's connected to a long silicone tube that goes to a preset depth in your fuel fill port. When turned on, a small computer measures the current air pressure in both the cap and the silicone tube. And when the fluid hits a tube to a pre-selected depth, it changes the air pressure enough to cause the computer to turn on a buzzer. As the fluid climbs up the silicone tube, the pressure goes higher, causing the buzzer to beat more frequently. Next slide, please. It's a kind of unique little build. It's a custom PCB or printed circuit board. The batteries that operates as a coin cell. There's a tiny microcontroller that's on the upper left. It looks like a little spider. There's a waterproof on and off switch. And then the pressure sensor itself, which is at the top view there. Next slide, please. The design, it was designed in Fusion 360 and well-known design software. It's an epoxy sealed dome. There's a waterproof O-ring to prevent leakage into the gas opening. There's a coin cell replacement axis that's at the inside of it. It's 3D printed in what we call PETG, which is resistant to heat. And it fits just about all different deck fill lines. Next slide, please. It's cheap to manufacture. The parts cost less than 20 bucks. Most fuel openings on boats are standardized, making the caps fairly easy to duplicate. The coin cell probably lasts 1 to 2 years, depending on frequency of use. Most important is the isolation of the electronics to prevent any sort of flammable vapor contact. It's the pressure sense tube can be made out of any material and be cut to any length. Next slide, please. This is a video. I think you might have to activate it by pushing the button. There we go. You can see how it's turned on. You push this button and you'll hear it. Sorry, I don't hear it right now, but do you guys getting sound? Anyway, this shows the sensitivity of the device. You push it in and within a ½ inch, it actually activates. Sorry, I'm not getting any sound from this thing, but that's all it takes. It's a very simple device and it's excellent for measuring depths of fuel. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Robert. We're now going to switch over to the judges panel to see what questions they have. We're going to start with Jim, move to Jon, go to Reggie, and then it's open to everyone.
Hi, hey, ex-commercial fisherman, been around boats a long time. I know exactly what you're talking about with those vents and the fuel and everything else. My question is it looks like this goes down the actual port where you're importing fuel, and Well, it looks like it would work in like a static cup that you're putting in, but how does this work when you actually have fuel going into the input and down it where this actual tube is at? Is that not going to interfere with the pressure and cause a back pressure, which would give you a false reading?
No, actually, it's been tested in my boat. The actual flow of the diesel fluid or gas around it doesn't cause any increase in pressure. You actually have to have a seal of rising fluid before it causes a pressure increase inside the tube. And that was my first concern in doing it. There's also a modification that prevents a gas filling tube from squishing the tube and causing some problems with that.
Okay. And the other question I had is it sounds like you're cutting it to a certain length in there, but this is attached to the cap that you're going to move off. And so how do you make sure that that tube stays the certain length that you need when that cap might be coming up or down or bouncing around while you're doing some of this stuff?
The tube, the actual instrument is connected by that small chain, same way a gas cap is. So it's held in place at a particular length.
Okay, perfect. That's the questions I had.
So this is I think this is a really neat thing you've come up with here. Do you have a feel for when you make it, like how expensive these would be if you were to produce them on a larger scale? Do you look like you made the whole thing yourself? Is that right? You kind of manufactured the...
Totally, yeah. They're extremely cheap. The reason why is these sensors are actually used in washing machines for telling you how much water there is in your washing machine. So on the mass scale, you can usually get these sensors for only around $9. The rest of the components are incredibly cheap. The computer's like $1. And the thing, if it's mass produced with injection molded plastic, probably the wholesale cost on the thing is probably going to be around $8 or $10.
Wow, that's not bad at all. And I don't know a lot about boats, unfortunately. I am not even a non-commercial fisherman very much. I'm terrible at it. When you put the tube down there, is there any concern that it's going to get squirreled up on the way down and not actually get to depth? Is there some way to ensure that it's going where it needs to go, or?
It's really easy to do. I've tried it on my boat a bunch of times, but you can attach a weight to it or you can make the plastic tube material out of something less ductile than silicone, so that it would have more of a shape to it. But yeah, it's totally easy to adjust, and it doesn't matter how long the tube is, as long as it goes into the right position. So that's it.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Robert, good idea. The only thing I can see is that because this is on the fill port of the fuel tank, right, and you're having to remove this to put fuel in, it kind of, I don't know, it seems a little awkward to me that it would be in that position. I mean, why wouldn't you put this on the vent side and have something that replaced the vent? And then it's not in the way, it's set at the correct depth. You don't need to worry about, are you pinching it with the nozzle? Is it down far enough? I don't know. It just seems to me odd that it's the cap that is your sensor, and then you remove the cap to put fuel in the time where you actually need the sensor.
No, I've been working on this idea for about 4 months or so, and I originally replaced the vent cap just like you thought. And the trouble is, a vent cap a lot of times is not anywhere near where the gas fill is. And it can be like 6 feet away or underneath something. And I thought you'd really want something accessible, and you want to watch it, and hear the signal right next to where you're filling. So that's why I switched over to this system. It's really tiny. It totally replaces the gas cap. They're fairly indestructible. You want to be right next to it while it's filling. You don't want to actually go somewhere else to turn it on and then come back and start filling the gas, that kind of thing. You'll probably forget that it's on and the battery will wear out. But that's the reason why I went to replace the gas cap totally.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for 1 or 2 more questions. Can I get a digital hand? I see 2. We're going to do Kathryn, followed by Jack, Wilbur.
Thank you. So what I'm curious about is your next steps. What are you thinking next? What would you?
Yeah, hard question. I'm not a businessman, nowhere near approaching that. I'm kind of just a design person. What I've done so far, I'm going to make up about 10 of these and have my friends try them out on their boats and see what the feedback is. Since it's so easy to produce by 3D printing, you can make a raft of these in an afternoon. And the wiring and all that kind of stuff is extremely simple. So I'll give it a shot, see what my friends think. And the main problem has to do with you really worry about separating electronics and gas. It's just one of those worries. This thing is extremely low voltage. It only runs off like 2 volts. And the sensor itself is kind of isolated. It's just a silicone layer, so there's hardly any possibility. But in terms of liability issues, it's one of these products that has to go through extensive testing, I'm sure, and all that kind of thing. So those are the steps I thought about.
Are you up for the testing?
Up for the what?
Doing that testing, are you considering that, or?
Testing of it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm more of a design person.
Thank you.
And Jack Wilbur will ask the last question, please.
So real quickly, I just want to make sure I understand. I picture this a device that has a silicone tube coming out of the bottom of it that goes down into the gas tank. And so when you take off the cap, the tube just stays in there and you're placing the tube or the cap at the end of a chain off the side of it. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Did I understand this right? Okay.
Perfect.
All right, thank you so much, Robert and judges. Before our next presenter, we're going to have our last sponsor spotlight. The Arctic Innovation Competition awards over $40,000 in cash prizes and awards. This cannot happen without the generous support of our many sponsors, and all of the AIC sponsors are listed on the website, but we wanted to give a special thanks to our presenting sponsor, UC Coal Mine, as well as the supporting Cub and Junior Division sponsors, Kinross Fort Knox and Alaska 529. As well as joining us as new sponsors this year, we welcome GCI and Mount McKinley Bank. Founding sponsors have supported AIC in our mission of innovation and economic development. That list includes Northrim Bank, Design Alaska, Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation, and Juneau Economic Development Council. Additional support is provided by PDC Engineers and Chris Marock Allstate Insurance, who supports the Fan Favorite Award. Fan Favorite voting offers the public a chance to vote for their favorite idea in each division. Fan Favorite recipients receive $100 and a unique Lego trophy. Fan Favorite winning ideas in the Cub and Junior divisions also receive $2,000 towards an Alaska 529 education account. Cast your votes in each division before midnight on Thursday. And our last competitor for this evening, stepping onto your Zoom screens, is Doug Walrath, and we'll give him a moment to step in. All right, Doug, can you see your slides?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Right. Doug is showcasing his idea, CTE delivery in a COVID environment, as well as his kids, Denali and Dylan, made it into the finals for the Cub division. Dylan, please watch your clock and give us a thumbs up when you're ready.
Thumbs up. I'm ready. I'm actually Doug, not Dylan. So this is Doug Walrath, and this is CTE, Career and Technical Education Delivery in a COVID Environment. So this is a service-oriented project. So behind me sits nearly $1 million worth of high-tech workforce development training tools that effectively have been mothballed for the last 13 months because of COVID. I'm sitting at the Nome-based Regional Training Center, known as NACTEC. It's a partnership between Bering Strait School District and Nome Public Schools that brings students in from the outlying villages in the Seward Peninsula region that you see here. There's other programs like this and other hubs, and there's other districts without programs that have similar needs. Next slide, please. So the need for an alternate CTE delivery approach. CTE is a very hands-on practical learning environment, grease under the fingernails type of course. It leads to increased graduation rates, has technical skill proficiency gains that lead to a sense of purpose and fit in community. The inverse to that, when there's a sense of hopelessness and helplessness, is an increase in suicide rates. Alaska has the highest per capita rate, 2 times the national average. The Alaska Native population is 3 times the national average. And the Alaska Native men between ages 15 and 24 who we serve are 12 times the national average. Next slide, please. This slide shows you the influence of career and technical education on graduation rates. On the left-hand side is a bar chart showing the increase in enrollment from 2004 to 2019. On the right is a bar chart similarly showing graduation rate gains for Bering Strait School District. 90% of the students we serve are from there. So from 2004 to 2008, the graduation rate was 38%. Effectively, 6 out of 10 kids were dropping out of school. From 2010, then up to 2019, the graduation rates increased from 48% to 87%, 70% average over that time. Even more impressive behind there in red, the kids who come through CTE graduated at a rate of 92%, 22% higher. Next slide, please. So what are we talking about? An element of this, imagine if you will, is a virtual environment. Kids, no matter where they're at in Alaska, the most remote villages, can still visit a program like this in a virtual environment. So let's take a quick tour. It looks something like this. You can, wherever you look, you see facilities that are training pieces of equipment. We go in here and we see the Easy Stop Sled kids from Monday night. Denali, what are you doing?
Learning how to boat.
Learning to boat. Dylan, what are you doing?
Learning how to fly.
Learning how to fly an airplane. So what we have is effectively information-rich tags that are embedded, and you can learn more about a training strand. So if we go to the next slide, select a program of interest. Let's say a kid wants to learn more about heavy equipment operator, small engine repair, flux core arc welding. These are courses that we've developed, courses to bring to the village. So it's not just video content online, it is, the technical information is there, but how do you do the training? So rather than try and fly one of these out to a village, and the bottom left, you see a mobile training solution, VR enhanced, hence Stephanie's presentation, that's very realistic for students. Next slide. Here's a look at aviation training. On the left is a basic aviation training device, same one that Dylan is on. It's in every village in the region. So students fly, they enter information into a Google Doc so we can see a flight log if they're interested in flying, and we can identify what students might have the proficiency to be a pilot. Then we send them a private pilot ground school kit so they can continue on. So to go from career exploration training to career engagement to career immersion. Next slide, please. So the feasibility and value. We've, in partnership with Department of Education and Early Development, have conducted a statewide survey. Actually, have had 21 respondents. They expressed interest in how they would like developing something like this to serve more students throughout the state. Value, what's the value of this? I would look at it this way. There's a relatively outdated 2009 study that has the cost of dropping out, and they attributed the cost of $292,000 of earnings over a lifetime, incarceration costs, and things like that. The bar chart you see on the right looks at Bering Strait School District. Students graduate in 2008-9 versus 17-18, and that's declining dropouts. And it's a cost savings of $9 million per graduating class in lifetime costs. So imagine that extrapolated across the entire state, and it's a huge savings. So boom, ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Doug. It was nice to see some familiar faces. Are you ready for some questions from our judges panel?
I'm absolutely ready.
All right, so we're going to start with Kathryn, move to Brian, go to Jack, and then it's open.
Well, I have to admit that I'm still formulating the question. My biggest question is about digital connectivity. How were you doing this digitally, or were you sending things out, or what was going on?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And that's one of the things we struggled with in the spring. In March, when everything shut down, effectively, there were these two things happening. Paper packets were going home, or the means of trying to connect with families electronically. Villages around here, the internet access rate is like 10%. The bandwidth is so slow, it's not even viable. So we look to say, let's come up with a solution, because there will be a time when people won't be at home and they'll be back in the schools. And they've been in the village schools here practically all year long. And that's where the internet accessibility is. So the model is built using the schools to access the internet. And for that and for what they have, for most of them, it's fine. There's still some villages remote like Wales and Diomede that have intermittent internet connectivity. But all in all, I would say, you know, much better than what's at home.
I'll pass on the talking stick.
Hey, thanks, Doug. Those are amazing improvements that you guys are achieving in your schools. Thank you for doing that. So I'd like to understand a little bit better the novelty of this, because I understand that across America, across this planet, we've all moved to remote. And it sounds like that's what you're doing, and you're taking it really seriously. But help me understand how this is really different than what we've been forced to do in many school districts. How is this different? Thank you.
Yeah, I think what's different is the fact, and this is what we talked about, we have 25 plus training courses. Let's boil it down to about 5 courses that we can bring that technical training to the students. So it's not just content you're accessing online. That's one of the main issues, is technical proficiency. There's a shortage of CTE teachers. So the individual we use who's retired was the 2019 Alaska CTE Teacher of the Year, who's a wealth of knowledge, and said, let's capture this knowledge. Small engine repair, the content, that's not going to change year by year. So we've got 29 video clips recorded, but then we fly the small engines, the tools, the PPE, everything to the village to teach a course. An instructor, if they have the technical proficiency, can deliver it on site, or we can fly the one instructor out rather than bring 25 kids in. And now you have a mitigation plan for COVID in place just by reducing the travel, having that person that has the vaccinations, all that, and going out to do it.
And next up is Jack Wilbur.
Yes, thank you. Very interesting. What would you do with the $10,000 if you were the winner of this event?
Yes, so one of the things that I noted, the last thing that I was doing last March is I was down in Anchorage at the Alaska Air Carriers Association presenting on our aviation training program. And the one element that we haven't been able to do is get out and travel and meet with others and spread the word and work on, there's things like we use Zoom to connect all the time, but it's not the same as sitting down with a group of like-minded people and going and visiting with others to say, hey, how can we establish and develop some relationships to exchange students between districts? Because that's really unique. And that's one of the things we've been doing for 18 years between 2 districts. And, you know, public education is local control. 59 districts are used to doing 59 local things. So to be able to work across the districts and develop that, that's something that needs to take work and buy-in from others. So that would be a primary element.
Thank you.
All right, we have 3 minutes, plenty of time for questions. So if I could see a digital hand or a real hand, and Kathryn will be up first. Kathryn Dodge, please.
Thank you. So are you planning on sharing these, what you have developed with other school districts then? Are you making them available for them? Have they indicated an interest?
Yeah, so that's one of the things, and I kind of zipped through feasibility rather quickly with the Department of Education. We had a survey out for the last 2 weeks, the end of March and April, with decent response across large parts of the state. So the next step on this is now in the next week or two, is setting up a Zoom call. There's a lot of great folks out there in CT. We don't claim to corner the market on it by any means. I look to see, like, there's areas and things we have here we specialize in, and others have that too. We've had a working relationship here with Chugach School District down in Anchorage for a number of years, and exchange students from our rural area that come through our program there, and they get urban living skills that they don't get here in Nome, whereas students coming up our way get some really good technical training. So finding the way to expand and grow that.
Is there another hand up, or may I ask a follow-up question?
Kathryn, please do. We still have time for one more after Kathryn.
Okay, so my follow-up question would be, is this technology that you've developed something that other schools can use to develop their CTE expertise and then share across the state?
You know, Kathryn, I think there's efforts here that we have kind of led the way on. The simulators that are sitting behind me, when that shutdown happened in March, I think it was April, I called the commercial vendor Synformotion out of Peoria, Illinois, and said, hey, we've got a pressing need. Like, I don't see us being able to bring kids in from all different villages for 2-week trainings and go out for a long time. We need a solution to go out. And I said, you know, what can you develop for us that can go out in a Pelican hard case that we can ship out for, like hydraulic excavator, dozer, grader, some of the needs that are out here. And by December, they had developed the hydraulic excavator, VR goggles, very, very powerful. It's incredible. And the dozer is supposed to come out here in the next several weeks. It's $18,000. But then again, I look at that cost of dropping out $292,000 per kid. Not engaging students is a much greater cost than what it is to develop some of these things that not only us, all others can get, you know, and or like that's mobile, ship out to other places.
Well, we're out of time. Does anybody have a pressing question? Otherwise, we'll close the question round and turn it back to Ashley.
All right, so real quick, we're going to pull all of our competitors back, but don't go anywhere. We have some closing comments. All right, so thank you, all of you main division competitors. It is a big deal to make it to the AIC semifinals, and we appreciate all of the hard work and creativity you've put into your ideas, plus all of the great presentations we saw tonight. The judges will listen to the last 5 competitors tomorrow evening at 5:30. You can also watch the session live streamed on the AIC website, plus all of the other semifinals have been recorded and can also be found on the AIC website. After Thursday's session, the judges will deliberate and make their choice on 1st through 4th place, honorable mentions, and the Arctic, COVID, and Alaska student kickers. Competitors will be notified Friday morning by a phone call and follow-up email of their placement. Some of you will return for the finals and award ceremony on Saturday with check-in at 12:30. Remember, regardless of where you place, there is a chance for any of the ideas tonight to win the Fan Favorite Lego Award and $100. Please tell your friends and family to cast their vote on the AIC website. And once again, thank you judges, competitors, and our audience. Tune in tomorrow at 5:30 to catch the second half of the AIC Main Division semifinals. Have a good night.